There were two brothers. One was Reb Elimelech, and one was Reb Zusha. They were traveling. You might know the story because I think I've told it a couple of times. But they were traveling, and someone stopped them. And they said, well, like, why are you stopping us? They said, oh yeah, we saw you did something against the law. And they said, how could that be? And they threw them in jail. So here there's two brothers in jail. Can you stop it for a second? I'm going to do that again. So two brothers, Reb Elimelech and Reb Zusha, were traveling. And they came to a city. And someone stopped them and said, you're under arrest. And they threw them into jail. They didn't know what they did wrong. They had no clue what was going on. But when they got into the jail, it was time to daven mincha, which means the afternoon prayer. And Reb Zusha says to his brother, Reb Elimelech, he says, what are we going to do? We can't pray in this place. Because right smack in the middle of the room, there was a urinal, a little pot that people would do their stuff in there, right? And they couldn't pray. So they were so upset. So you know what Elimelech said? He said, listen a second. He says, I want to tell you, the same God that you pray to, amazingly, is that same God that you can get up and dance, and the dancing is going to be the same as if you're praying. So let's get up and dance. God doesn't want us to pray because there's a urinal here. So let's dance instead. So they get up and they start dancing, and you know how they're dancing, ay, 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 whatever. And everybody around looks at them and goes, hey, you know what? Look at these Jews. They're dancing. There must be something to dance about. Let's dance too. So everybody's dancing. The whole place is going crazy. The prison is dancing. All the prisoners are jumping up and down and dancing round in a circle. And the prison guard overhears this noise, and he's like, what's going on here? So, of course, the prisoners point to the two Jews, rabbis, dancing in the middle, and they say, it's their fault. So he comes up and he goes, I don't understand. What are you guys so happy about? You're in prison. Why are you dancing? They said, and they start pointing to the urinal, and they're laughing, So the guy goes, that's perfect. I'm going to take the urinal out, and guess what? They're going to stop dancing. So he takes out the urinal, and Reb Elimelech turns to his brother Reb Zusha and he says, Reb Zusha, now we can start praying to God. So now they were able to pray. So the interesting thing is, what is prayer about? So today we're going to talk about a little bit about prayer. But mostly what we're going to talk about is prayer for a woman. Each of us have different things in our lives, and each of us have different missions. Men have one type of mission, and women have another type of mission. So if we look at the makeup of a man and a woman, so we see the first attribute that we know on the top of the list is called chachma. What is chachma?
Smartness?
Wisdom. But what kind of wisdom is chachma? It's like an aha. I got an idea. That's chachma. Right? Then there is the second one, which is called bina. What is bina?
Is it kindness?
No. Bina, chachma, and bina. No, it's bina is understanding. Okay, understanding basically means I will take the idea and I will look at it and see the good things about it and the bad things about it, and make my decision based on whatever the good things and the bad things. And that's how I will decide. The third, bina. Bina is understanding. Then goes da'at. Da'at is knowledge. But what kind of knowledge is it? Once we figure out what we want to do, we need to do da'at, which is application. How do we apply it to things? So we know that it says a saying, Nashim datim kalos. The woman's da'at, which is connected, is kalot, is very, very, how you say kalot? Very easy. What does that mean? That the woman's da'at is very easy. Okay, and to give you an example. You go to a Torah class. The man's going to come home. He just learned about keeping kosher. What's the man going to do when he comes home?
Said to his wife, keep kosher.
No, a man is not going to do that. What's a man going to do? Oh, I had an amazing class. What happened in my class? We learned about kosher. It's such a beautiful subject. What's the woman going to do?
Cook.
She's going to come home, and what is she going to do when she hears a class on kosher?
She starts.
She starts keeping kosher. I'm going to change my dishes now. Because a man is rational. He says, I learned such and such. And a woman is more about application. So her da'at, her application, is very easy. She goes and uses that application very, very easily. Mm-hmm. Right? So she's going to change her dishes. That's what she's going to do right away. She's going to apply it. Let me see how I could apply whatever I'm learning to whatever I'm doing in my life. Whereas a man, through his rationale, will say, it was a beautiful class. We saw how beautiful kosher is. You know, there are separate dishes, milk and meat, etc., etc. But he's not going to do the application so quickly. He doesn't have that quickness when it comes to application. Maybe in a couple of weeks after he's learned it for a long time, then he'll say, okay, maybe we should start keeping kosher. But a woman right away is going to say, how can I apply it to my everyday life? So a woman, when she does things, she's always doing the applications. So that means that she's more grounded. Right? A woman is more grounded. That's also why a woman does not wear tefillin. Because a tefillin is what grounds you. And we are already grounded. We don't need the tefillin. It's the idea of the difference between all week and Shabbat. All week, men wear tefillin. On Shabbat, they don't wear tefillin. Why?
Why?
Because Shabbat is already on the level of tefillin. You don't need a tefillin to keep Shabbat. During the week, you need that reminder, kind of little nudge. You know what, guys? You got to keep tefillin. You got to ground you a little bit. On Shabbat, you're already grounded automatically. It's like the difference between a man and a woman. A woman is already grounded. A man needs to become grounded. So what is a man? A man is about doing, and a woman is about being.
Woman is about what?
About being. I'm here. It's Shabbat. Shabbat is about being.
Okay.
This is a holy day. We are holy already. And a man is doing. And soon I'll explain to you a little bit more about that, what that means. Okay. So it's interesting that you say about when you go into a synagogue, why is there even a woman's side and a man's side? What's the reason?
Why
To not be
even?
distracted, right?
What?
Isn't it to not be distracted?
Okay, so that's an answer that shouldn't be distracted. That's one answer. Interesting thing is, but it's still important that you have women in the synagogue.
What?
Why is it important?
Why?
Because men and women both need to be in the synagogue for the prayers to go up to God properly. If a woman is not in this, if there's no women in the synagogue, the man's prayers don't go up. As a story, there was a Belzer Rebbe. He decided that he was building a new synagogue. A rabbi from Hasidim, one of the Hasidim called Belz. And this, I think, actually was in Israel at that time. And they were building the synagogue. And the only thing that wasn't ready was the woman's balcony. And the Belzer Rebbe says, I'm sorry, guys, you can't come into the synagogue until everything is ready. Because the women's balcony is just as important as the men's side. So it does have a lot of importance. The other thing is that women tear easily. You know, they're more sensitive, so they tear easily. And it says that all the gates of heaven were closed after the second temple. Why? Because during the first and second, actually after the first temple, after the first temple. Why? Because during the first temple, there were prophets. So prophets, they were able to tell you what's going to happen, what's going on. You should behave yourself. You know what's going to happen if you don't behave yourself, stuff like that. But once God took away prophecy from the Jewish people,
Why?
he closed all the gates. He closed all the gates. Only one gate is still open. And that's the gate of tears. So if we pray with tears and we ask God for whatever we want, those tears will go straight to God. Completely straight to God. This is the idea that tears are very important in prayer. So here we have women and men. What is also the difference? If we look in the Torah, we will see differences of how women sing and how men sing. If we look at the splitting of the sea, when the Jews went through the sea, after they went out of Egypt, right? There was a splitting of the sea. The Jews went through the sea, and the men started to sing. What did the women do? Anybody?
Right?
No, what did they do? They also sang, but they not only sang, they danced, and what else? And they used tambourines and instruments. Women, yeah. That was the difference between a woman singing and a man singing. The man just sing and say, singing with their voice, but the woman have this emotional connection. So not only did they sing with their voice, but they used their body, they danced, and they played tambourines. Played with the tambourines
Before
and
they
also
crossed the sea?
after they crossed the sea.
Oh, they crossed and then...
Once they crossed the sea, the men started to sing. It's called Shirat Hayam. It's the song of the sea. But the women were also singing. And what did the women do? Did they just sing? No. They danced. They played instruments.
They put their
Is
heart.
this after
They
the
put
sea
their
was
whole
split,
heart-
when the water came
Yes,
back?
yes,
Oh,
yes.
So they were protected.
Right. They sang to God. They were happy. So this was a singing out of happiness. Once they crossed the sea already, and the sea went back, and they realized that they're saved, they started to sing. But a woman will just not only sing. She will dance. She'll play the tambourine. In other words, a woman, when she prays, she has a different type of emotion than a man does.
So this is singing actually was a prayer.
Right. It was kind of like, yes, it was a prayer. The singing was a prayer, but it wasn't just a prayer of song. It was a prayer of dancing, a prayer of instruments. Everything, she used all her emotions to make that prayer happen. That wasn't so easy. So if you think about it, so now you kind of see a little bit differences of how a man prays and how a woman prays.
Yeah.
You know, a man prays rationally. He'll pray to God, he'll say thank you and everything else, but a woman uses more emotion. She adds to her prayers. She uses a lot more feeling to the prayers that she's praying than a man does. And Hashem loves that, of course. So a man is from the emotions of giving, maybe, of overcoming obstacles, things like that. Woman is from Malchut. Malchut is royalty. A woman needs to be like a daughter of a queen. That's why she has to dress nicely. Doesn't mean she has to overdress or go crazy. But it's important for her to dress nicely. Malchut is a receiver, but also a giver. So she's both. Malchus is like a king. A king needs to be a receiver. You can't be a king, only give. Why? Because you need to know what the people in the nation want. If you don't understand what they want, you can't be the giver. Then you can't be the king. So a king is not about telling your subjects what to do. A real king is like King David. What did he do? He saw what the nation wanted and therefore gave it to them. Because a real king is not a dictator. A real king is a receiver and a giver at the same time. And that's why they say that a woman is royalty. Because she can receive and she can also give. She can listen to what people need and give what she should, what they want. Not just anything. So that's why she's considered Malchut. Shabbos is also Malchut. Shabbos, it says, Shabbos is the queen, right? Yeah. Remember Shabbos Hamalka? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Shabbos is the queen. Mm-hmm. This is the same idea. Because Shabbos receives from all the days of the week and it also gives to the next week. Yeah. It gives the beauty to the next week. So Shabbos is the receiver and the giver at the same time. And who was created last? Who was created last? The woman, right? The woman was created last. So whatever was created last receives, but also she gives, which is interesting. So we said again, masculine prayer is more rational, and a feminine prayer is more with feeling and more, right? So what is, when you say God is a man, it's a lot. You say God is a man, you say the God that's transcendent, that's above nature. When you say God as a woman, as a she, it's the Shekhinah, it's the she. She is in the world. She's the receiver and the giver at the same time. So she is the God in the world. Shekhinah means God in this world. That's called Shekhinah. It's the presence of God in this world. It's called the Shekhinah. And where was the Shekhinah resting? In the temple.
So God is like he and she.
Right, God is both. God is a he and God is a she. Of course, both.
Just the presence of God was in the temple? He wasn't still...
No, the Shekhinah, the actual Shekhinah, which is the strongest presence of God in this world, was in the temple. Doesn't mean that God is not everywhere else. Mm-hmm. But the strongest presence of God was in the temple.
Do you think it's still there on that mount or no?
Well, you know what? We don't know exactly, but we definitely know by the Western Wall, if you stand there, you can actually feel the presence of God.
It's weird because
It's an amazing
I actually
feeling.
went on the mount and like I
You
didn't
felt something?
No.
No, I'm not sure. See, I don't know because I've never been there.
Yeah.
But I've definitely been to the Western Wall, and you can actually feel the presence of God at the Western Wall. You also should know that the presence of God is stronger in a synagogue as it is everywhere else. So anything that's a little holier, the presence of God is stronger. Okay, so what's the history of the temple? The history temple was a man and a woman would stand side by side. So there were two different areas. There was the women's area and there was the men's area. So that's how we know how a synagogue needs to be, the same way as the temple. So now the question that we have here is, why can't a woman be part of a minyan? You know what a minyan is? A quorum of 10. A quorum of 10. Why? Because where does the word minyan come from? Originally, the minyan comes from the word of the spies. Do you remember the story with the spies? Yeah. When the Jews were in the desert, God sent, actually Moses sent 10 spies to where?
Israel.
To Israel. Actually, there were 12 spies, but 10 spies are the ones who said bad, and they came back with a bad report. And that's the first time that we see in the Torah something called a minyan. So the spies, the minyan, why do we have a minyan? To atone for the sin of the spies. Did we do the sin of the spies? No. Not the women, just the men did, right? The other thing is, we know that when you count, it's also not so good sometimes, because counting can be ayin hara, can be an evil eye. You know, when you start counting people, when you count people, it's not a good thing.
It's not good?
No, it's not a good thing to count. If you're going to count, say not 1, not 2, not 3, so it's not like you're really counting.
But if somebody asks him, how many kids you have?
Not one, not
As
two,
much as
not
God wants me to have, thank God.
Interesting, I didn't know.
Or you say kinahara, whatever. Wow.
We're not meant to count in general.
People.
No, people.
Shouldn't be counting people, but it's not a good.
There's census in the Torah.
Yes, and that's what. Listen, the census in the Torah is a whole thing. What happened after the census? It wasn't good for the Jewish people.
Oh, so we're not allowed to count people.
Better not to count people. Yes.
Like,
Is it just
Even
Jews or...
God, when he
People
need to
in general.
count people, he counts shekels.
Right, he counts the shekels
Half
later.
shekels.
Later
Remember?
on, he counted the
Not
half
people,
shekels.
but half
No,
shekels.
the beginning
So,
they
like,
did.
if you say,
but
oh,
later on, they counted the
how
half a
many
shekel.
people comes in my house? Let me count. This,
This is something else. I
Is
don't
that
know.
okay?
No, I do not 1, not 2, not 3, because I don't want to feel like I'm counting them directly.
So not two, not...
Yeah, or you count them, Hoshea, et Tamecha, Varchas,
You could do
Nasach,
A, B, C, D,
A, B, C, D, E, or something you can do. Yeah.
If you're having people for dinner, you have to say about 20 or something?
You can say about, I'm having about 20 people, yeah.
Yeah, it's better than
Better not to say the exact amount so it doesn't feel like you're counting.
Interesting, I didn't know.
Okay, so why didn't they count the tribe of Levi?
Wait,
First of all, Levi didn't go. And secondly, the tribe of Levi and also the women were not counted. Right? Just like the women were not counted. So we go back to Aaron HaKohen, and we look at Aaron HaKohen and we see that he had many, many hats. Because Aaron was what? He was a helper for Moshe. What else was he?
The high priest.
He was the high priest, exactly. What else did he do? He made peace between families, between people. He was a person that people would go to. He did outreach. He did a million different things. Same thing of women. We're beyond number. Why? We have many hats. What do women do? We're mothers. We're wives. We're teachers. We're psychologists.
Chefs.
We're chefs. What else are we?
Shoppers.
What?
Grandma.
Grandmothers.
But
we're
talking about
we're
genuine.
psychologists. We're advisors. I mean, we can go on and say what women are.
Artists.
And women are artists, right? Women have many, many hats. They really have many hats, but we are definitely beyond number. So we can't be put in this little thing and say, I'm going to count you as a 10th person in a minion. We can't be counted in a minion. We are above number. We're way beyond that. That doesn't help us. For a man, when you count them in a minion, it's for their atonement for the spies. But at the same time, it's also giving them something. For us, it doesn't give us anything. We're already far beyond number. We're infinite.
Reform synagogue, they have minion, yeah, no? How is
Yes, but that's because they don't understand what a minion
it? I
means.
understand, yeah.
Okay, for them a minion means something else.
What? Reform?
Reform synagogues, some of them, but that they don't understand what a minion means, so that's why they have a minion. Okay, so women are required to do all mitzvot except for what? Mitzvahs that are connected to time, that are time bound. Like we said, we're above time. We're above space. So we're above time too. So we do not have to do mitzvahs that are in time bound.
Also, we don't have to put on tefillin.
Right, well we talked about tefillin a few minutes ago.
Oh, okay, you said everything except for the time.
Well, tefillin is time bound.
Oh, okay.
Of course. It's
Oh, it
you have to
is?
do yes. Tefillin you have to put it on only during the daytime. You can't put tefillin at night. So it's
But
time.
not,
it's
not,
by
not
time.
especially morning.
Yeah,
can
you
be-
should. No, there's a special time that you put on tefillin. You can't put tefillin on at after midday even
Sunset.
or after sunset. Okay, so all the mitzvahs that we're connected, we have a lot of interesting mitzvahs that we can do that are so strong, like believing in God. That's a very big mitzvah. Not to have other gods. The oneness of God, loving God, fearing God, also to not go after our eyes, which is a very hard one, because a lot of times we like food. We just talked about this today. We were just having this conversation about food. So it says, Lo sasur levavchem, don't turn your eyes towards something that's like idol worship. Food is like idol worship. Clothes can be like idol worship. Why? Because you're so obsessed by
It's a
it.
pleasure,
But
yeah.
you're obsessed by it. It's one thing if you're eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but if you're obsessed by food,
Yeah.
that's a hard one, right? It's like, I think that's one of the most difficult ones.
Of course,
Not to be obsessed by
actually-
certain things.
Yes, you're right.
Isn't candle lighting a little bit time bound?
Candle lighting
And
was to
also-
usher in the Shabbos.
Okay.
So it's not about the time as much as it is to bring in the Shabbos. It's a little bit
And
different.
family
So
purity
actually,
in the middle.
there are 3 mitzvot that were specifically time bound just for women.
Oh, okay.
Which are the candle lighting, the challah taking, and also the taharat hamishpacha, which is the mikvah. Right? Those 3 were given specifically for women and for no one else.
With time.
Wait, I missed it. It was, what was the besides the mikveh and the Shabbos or something?
Taking challah.
What does that mean?
That means that if you make a batch of challah, of dough, that's about 5 pounds,
Yeah.
you have to take a piece
Say
and
bra-
burn it. Like
say
take a
bracha.
piece off and say a bracha.
But why is that time bound?
Because you have to do it at the time that you're making the dough. You can't do it another time. Right?
5 pounds.
Well, 3 point something, whatever. it
Oh,
is, yeah.
so if you make it less, you don't have to.
You don't make a bracha. You take a piece, but you don't make a bracha.
Oh.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you a
If
little
it's
later about
smaller,
that.
if it's smaller, that's true.
Right. There's
Different-
measurements. Right. There's different measurements for exactly how many, but that will go into another time. Okay. So it's also important that we should make certain types of women's groups. Like Rosh Chodesh is very important for women. Different prayer groups you could make too. I mean, you can do things for women, study groups, or whatever it is. Those are the things that are really important for women. Especially for prayer, you need to say the Shema and Shemona Esrei. Why? Why do women, it's important for women to say Shema and Shemona Esrei even though it's time bound? Because Shema and Shemona Esrei are prayers that we say with feeling because we want something.
Which one is Shmona Esrei?
Shemona Esrei is the one you stand for. Okay, the one after Shema.
Okay.
So those are very important prayers. So now the question is, why do we pray every day? No, we can pray once in a while. Why do we pray every day?
You know how I explain myself?
How?
Deep breathing with breaks, breathing.
When we breathe, it's like as if you're breathing. You pray also.
Yes, because
I'll tell you
it's
something.
very important.
I'll tell you something even better. I'll tell you something better that I heard.
Yeah.
When you're talking, when your husband is talking to you, okay, and he says, "I love you." One time in your lifetime, your husband should say, "I love you," or you want him to say it every day.
Of course,
Of course, every day.
as more as possible.
Right. So that's one thing about a prayer. You know, if you pray to God and say, "I love you," "I care about you," whatever you want it, you have to say it every day because this is the relationship. So if you're making a relationship with God, you need to do it every day. You can't just say, "I love you" once in a blue moon. So that's why we pray every day.
You say in the morning prayer, or you say mincha as well?
Well, women took upon themselves to do morning prayers. But
With kids, no. With kids already.
right, yeah, but you at least, yeah, okay. It depends. You have to see how much you can pray. But morning prayers is the most important. Whatever you can, you can. So actually the synagogue, even though women can pray out of the synagogue with no problem because you don't need a minyan, but it's important to pray in the synagogue because it's more powerful. It's a more powerful place because you have other people around you also praying. And it's also a holier place because prayers are constantly happening here. And again, what we said was that God created Zachar and Nekeva, male and female. The mitzvah of the man is actually to procreate. It's not a mitzvah for a woman to procreate. Why? To have a baby, to have children. Yeah. Yeah. Why is it not a mitzvah for a woman to have children?
Yes.
Because we automatically want to have children. We are the ones who carry the baby. So we automatically want to have children. A man doesn't necessarily have that connection so much to children as we do, as women do. Why? Because we carry the child in our stomachs for 9 months. So we don't really have the choice. But a man, you have to give him that mitzvah that he should have children to make sure that he does it.
He's orangish. If you look at the other white people, he's orange.
So a man, he brings down the light, and we distribute that light. And that's why one of our mitzvahs is lighting the Shabbos candles. Why? Because we distribute light. We light the light so that all over there should be light. And what's the Shabbos candles about? Shalom bayis, peace in the home, peace in the world. We're giving the light all over. And that's why the women not only sang, but they also danced, because they're distributing that light. The men, they can bring down, they can sing, it's enough for them. But for us, because we're giving the light to everyone else, we have to make it more exciting and make people connect to that light.
Mattie, I see them dancing so long. They can dance.
You're 100% right, but you have to remember, you know why? Because we're closer to Mashiach's times.
Maybe.
Therefore, Hasidim dance too. Therefore, men dance too. Because as we get closer to the time of Mashiach, the femininity is much stronger in the world.
Because they dance always.
Monty, what about
can
like
see
holy
pictures
rabbis that like didn't have children?
Okay, there's another thing to do. If you don't have your own children and you can't have children, then you can either adopt, or you can work with people who have children, like underprivileged places, or you go to a place, or you support. There's lots of stories about people who couldn't have kids and they supported yeshivas of kids or schools of kids. So there's a lot of stories like that actually.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's what you do. If you can't have it yourself, you need to do something to connect to something that has children.
Does yours have blocks?
Okay. We know that the Rebbe didn't have children.
Yeah, and I was
So
thinking,
I'm just saying,
Who
but
didn't
the Rebbe had all of us as children.
Yeah.
You know how many thousands and thousands of children the Rebbe really had?
and I was thinking like that Rebbetzin didn't have kids. He didn't even get married.
Right. Well, we don't know what the situation is. Maybe he supported somebody with kids. Nobody knows exactly what happened. And as we get closer to the Geula, to redemption, we hear more the femininity's voice. It says that right before Mashiach comes, Nekeva Tesov of Gever, the woman will surround the man. The light of the woman will surround the man. In other words, the femininity will be stronger than the masculinity. Especially this week's parsha. What do we see in this parsha? We see it says, Ela Shemos B'nai Yisrael. These are the names of the Jewish people. Then we only see the Jewish people. We see the sons of Israel. We see the actual sons of Israel. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, just the 12 sons. But what is this parsha about? It's about names. It's all about names. We did see Moshe's name in there. From the water I took you out. That was Moshe's name. We also see in this parsha somebody very special, Shifra and Pua, who were the two midwives who actually made the children live. Because Paro said that I want all the baby boys to die, right? And what did these women do? They made sure that they didn't die. And when Paro asked them, why didn't you kill them? They said, I'm sorry, the Jewish women, they're right away, they're having so many children, and quickly, by the time we get there, they're already born. So we can't do anything. So they put themselves into trouble. But the interesting thing is I was just reading that the name Shifra and Pua, if you take the numerical value, it's equal to Shemos, which means names. So if we see that these two women, they were considered like the names of Israel. They were considered like all the Jewish people. What they did for the Jewish nation is like all the people did for, in other words, what they did for the Jewish nation is just like considered like the whole Jewish nation.
And they're Egyptian.
No, they weren't Egyptian.
Oh,
they were actually Yocheved and Miriam.
Oh.
They were the
Mother and a sister.
Right, they were a mother and a sister, a mother and a daughter. Mm-hmm. So they were Yocheved and Miriam, really. So, but the thing is that also that we see that they made these children live. They didn't, they pushed them to live. And this is what a Jewish woman does. She makes the Jewish nation live. She continues on to make the whole world continue to live. The whole Jewish nations continue to live. This is what they did. And we also know that the women in Egypt were very special. Their husbands would work very hard in the field. And they would come home, and the woman would dress up for them and take a mirror and say, look at me and look at you. Who looks better? And of course the husband would say, you look better. And so that's how they got them to have more children, because the husbands worked so hard they didn't want to have children. So here the woman comes, look how nicely I look. See, you see in the mirror how beautiful I look? And so they would, at night, they would be together and have more children. And this is how the Jewish nation continued. Huh?
You mean during the 200 years?
Yeah, during the time that the Jewish men were working so hard as slaves for Egypt.
Oh, right.
And so therefore, when they worked so hard, this is how the Jewish women got them
Depression,
to be happy. No,
disease,
not to be depressed. So it says that these copper mirrors were actually used for the temple. They were used for the wash basin in the temple. And that's what happened with the Jewish women. Did you imagine? Isn't that beautiful? So let us all remember, as Jewish women, to continue to pray. And we should be able to say to all our Jewish women something beautiful for them. And they can say something beautiful for us. And we should pray like only women can pray. And spread the light. The idea was spreading the light, right? Spread out the light and keep this unity. Because spreading the light and lighting the candles is considered unity. We should continue this unity to what? To bring Mashiach. Because as the Jewish people unite together, that's how we bring Mashiach. And as we look at our friends and everyone else, we see the beauty of each person. then we're able to bring Mashiach. That's what's going to bring Mashiach. And may we all spread that light and Mashiach now.
Amen, amen.
Amen.
Okay.